Hey guys, it's Thomas here with Technovision and welcome to episode 2 of our modding tutorial series. In this episode, we'll be talking about how to create a basic custom item and add it to the game and of course texture it and all of that. And I think this is a lot easier than the earlier versions of Forge, which is really great, but we can get right into it. So the first thing you want to do is come to your tutorial folder here, or whatever you named your mod of course, and right click, new, and create a package. And this is going to be our utility package, so we can name this util. And hit enter. And again, util stands for utility. So we need to create our first utility class inside of here. And that is going to be our registry handler class. So you can right click, new, Java class. And like I said, we're going to name this registry handler. And you can hit enter. Now this class, this registry handler class, is going to have all of our items, blocks, entities. They're all going to be in what's called deferred registries. And it's okay if you don't really understand what those are. But we will be using them, and they're pretty simple actually once you get the hang of them. So inside of our class here, we want to make a few spaces. The first thing we want to do is create a deferred registry for our items. So we can type public static final deferred register. Oh, I misspelled deferred there. Deferred register. And in triangle braces, we want to put item. And this is going to say that our deferred register can only hold items from Minecraft. So if we hover over item, we can import the class and make sure you import from net.minecraft.item. And you can see it imported here. And we want to name this deferred register items. And this is going to equal, and make sure items is in all capitals as well because it is a final and it's static as well. So this is going to equal new deferred, keep putting two F's, deferred register, two empty triangle braces, and then in parentheses, forge registries dot items. There we go. We can put a semicolon on the end here. And we also want to put our mod ID, but we'll do that in a second. So make sure you import deferred register as well. Hover over it and import class. And we can save real quick. Now we need to add our mod ID to this as an argument here. So if we go to our tutorial class, or whatever you named your main mod class, right above, or I guess right below where you have your logger here, we can create a new public static final string, and we're gonna name it mod underscore ID. And this is gonna be equal to whatever your mod ID is basically. So you can just copy and paste whatever is up in here, right click, copy, and paste it in to these parentheses, and put a semicolon on the end. And now we can access our mod ID anywhere in the mod. So if we go back to registry handler, all we have to do now is just put a comma, and then type tutorial, or whatever the name of your mod class is, dot, and you can see right there we have our mod ID, and we can double click that. There we go, so that we now have our mod ID as an argument in there. And we've successfully created this deferred register. That's pretty much it. Now we just have to add items to it. So you can think of this sort of like a list of items, and you're going to be adding to it over time. So if we make a few spaces here, we can make a quick comment here with 2 slashes, just saying that this is for items only. And we can make our first item. So to make an item, you want to type public static final registry object, and then in triangle braces item, and then the name of your item. Well, first we should actually import registry object, so we can import class. And this is a registry object because deferred registers take registry object items. So inside of here, we're gonna name our item. So in this case, you know, just like we did with the last tutorial, sort of as an homage to it, we're gonna do Ruby. So we're gonna make a Ruby item. And so the name should be in all capitals as well because it is final right here. This is going to equal items. Again, this is the name of our deferred register. So items.register. And then in parentheses, we're going to first put the name of our item. So in those parentheses, make 2 quotation marks. And inside those quotation marks, we're going to type Ruby. And then a comma after this. And the actual item itself. So I'm gonna write item base semicolon semicolon new with a semicolon at the end here. Now we haven't made the item base class yet, but let me just run through this really quickly. So right here, this is the name, not the name that shows up in Minecraft, but the name of your item in the code. So if you have an item that has spaces in it, in the name, so let's say you were gonna create an item called tanned leather. So you would type tanned underscore leather. So every time you have a space naturally in the language, you would put an underscore. But in this case, this is one word, it's Ruby. And of course we have our name Ruby here as well. And this is a lambda. This is a Java concept. You might not understand it, but that's okay. Just know that right here, this is your item, pretty much, the item class. Now we have to create this class because we haven't made item base yet, but we can file save all real quickly. Now come over to your tutorial folder here and right click, new, package. And we're gonna name this items and hit enter. And this is going to store all of the special unique items that you have as well as the base item. In this case, like we said, item base here. So in items, you want to right click, new, Java class, and name this exactly what we put here, item base. Item base. There we go. And if we hit enter, we're inside of item base. Now inside of here, this is a really simple class. It's just going to extends item. And that just makes it inherit the everything from item. We can import item as well. Again, make sure it's from net.minecraft. And inside of here, well, I guess we can just hover over and click create constructor matching super. And that will create the constructor for us. And this constructor, we don't actually need to pass anything into it, so we can delete this because we can just do it all inside of the class. It's never gonna change. So instead of super, whatever this p underscore I thing is, just delete that. And inside of super, we want to type new item with a capital I, dot properties with a capital P, dot group. And inside of here, we're going to type what our creative tab is that we this item is under. So if you know Minecraft creative tabs, there's like the material section, the potion section. If you type item group dot, you can see all the different item groups here. These are all the vanilla creative tabs, and we'll make our own later in another video, but for now I would just choose whatever fits. So this is a material because it is a ore. So item group dot materials. And yeah, so we're pretty much done with this class. Super easy, as you can tell, way easier than 1.12. We can file save all real quick. And again, all this is saying is that whenever you create a new item using item base, it's creating a new item with properties that assign it to the group of materials. So pretty much all, it's pretty self-explanatory as you go down the line. But we can go back to registry handler here, and if we hover over item base, we can import the class. And now you can see that we have no errors, and this is our final item created. Now the last thing we have to do is actually initialize it inside of our game. So if we actually make a few spaces here, we can create a method to store all of our register commands. So public static void, and we're just gonna call it init, and it's not gonna take any arguments. And inside of these curly braces here, we're gonna type items.register. And inside of these parentheses here, we're gonna type fml java mod loading context dot get. And after the dot get, we wanna do dot get mod event bus. There we go, with two parentheses on the end and a semicolon. And we wanna make sure that we import fml java mod loading context as well. And we can save file, save all. So this method here is going to fill up over time with items.register, blocks.register, entities.register, and that way we can just call init, and that's all we really need to do. So let's go back to our main class here, our tutorial class, or whatever you named your mod, and in between this fml java mod loading context here and our event bus, we're going to type registry handler dot init with a semicolon, and we can import our registry handler import class. And you can see that we are now calling the init class in our main constructor here for our main class. So if we file and save all, and we go up to the green triangle in the top right corner, we can run our game, and we're just gonna see that our item is actually in the game and working. It's not gonna have a texture yet or a name, but we'll deal with that in a second. All right, so we're inside of the game, and if we open up our creative menu, we can go to the miscellaneous tab because we did put it as materials, and I believe in the recent version, Minecraft combined materials and miscellaneous. And if we scroll down, we can see that we do have our item here. You can also find it in the search items menu by scrolling all the way down. It'll always be at the bottom. And if we actually take it, you can see that it doesn't have a texture yet or a model, but our item is working and it's inside of the game. So if you're at this point and you can see this this cube here on the ground, that means that you are doing well. So let's go back to our IntelliJ program. Now that we're back in IntelliJ, we're gonna start working on making our item model and the texture, as well as giving it a name. So you can close out of item base and registry handler as we're done with those classes for now, but we'll come back to them in a second. However, you wanna go over to your resources folder here. So this is not in your main, your Java path with COM, Technovision, tutorial. This is completely separate. This is your resources folder here. And if you right click, we wanna create a new directory, and we want to name this assets and hit enter. And this assets folder is going to store all of your JSON files, all of your textures, everything that really is important to texturing and modeling your blocks and items. So we're going to right click, new directory, and we're going to name the directory inside of assets your mod ID. So again, your mod ID is what you have up here with the @mod tag. So mine is tutorial, hit enter. And inside of your mod ID folder, we're gonna right click, create a new directory, and we're gonna name this lang, that's L-A-N-G, and hit enter. And this lang folder is gonna store all of the names of your items, but we'll deal with that in a second. Go back to your tutorial folder, right click and create another directory, and name this one models. Now inside of this models folder, we're gonna right click, create a new directory, and our first directory is going to be called block. And we're going to create a second directory in models, new directory called item. So inside of your tutorial folder, there should be a lang and a models folder. And in your models folder, you should have a block and an item folder. Now inside of tutorial, we're going to create another directory, right click, new directory. And we're going to name this, I believe, textures. Enter. And inside of textures, we're going to create two directories. First one is called blocks. This is plural now. And we're going to create another directory called items. So again, models is going to have two called block and item. Textures is going to have two called blocks and items, plural with an S on the end. And this should be good, I think, for creating our first item. So first we're going to deal with our the name of our item. So inside of your lang folder here, you want to right click, new, and we're going to create a new file. And you're going to name this file en_us.json. Now this file is a JSON file, not a Java file, so the syntax is going to be a little bit different, but we're going to create a curly brace and two curly braces, and inside of those, we're gonna type in parentheses, item dot, the name of your mod ID, sorry, tutorial. Again, remember your mod ID is this tag that you put right here. So item dot your mod ID dot, and then the name of your item. And by name, I mean this, let's go back to our registry handler. I mean this name right here. You can see we have Ruby there. Make sure you're doing that name. So .ruby, and then at the end of these parentheses, you want to put quotation marks. You want to put a colon, and then another set of quotation marks. And this is going to be the actual name that you find in the game. So we're going to type Ruby. But remember my example before where you had bound_leather? If that was the case, you would put bound leather. Because again, this is the name that you're actually finding inside of the game. So I'm going to put Ruby. And I believe that's it. If you create a new entry, you want to add a parenthesis, or not a parenthesis, sorry, a comma, and create a new entry. But your last entry should not have a comma. You can file, save all, and we can close our en_us.json file, and we can go to our models here, and we want to create a new file inside of our item directory. So right click, new, file. And this is going to be the name of your object, or your item rather, .json. So again, if it's bound leather, you're going to do bound underscore leather .json. Or I guess tanned leather, same thing. But in our case, we're going to do Ruby. So ruby.json. Enter, and make sure it's all lowercase, of course. Now inside of here, this is going to be our model JSON. This is going to determine what our item model looks like, and it'll use our texture that we use later. So go over to the description, and you want to enter in the first link in the description into Google, and you will find this paste bin here, and you can copy this paste bin, right click, copy, and you can paste it into your ruby.json file. Right click, paste, and this is your model JSON. We just have to change a few things. So the parent here is item/generated because this item is just a regular item, and the texture we're using, this is going to be the directory. So where it says mod ID in all capitals, you want to delete that and place in your mod ID. Again, mine is tutorial. And where it says item name, you want to place in the name of your item. Again, this would be like tanned underscore leather if you were using underscores in yours, but mine is just Ruby. And we can file, save all, and this should be it for the JSON. Again, you can leave this items section alone. All you want to change is your mod ID and the name of the item. Otherwise, the rest is fine, just so it's easier for you to sort of get right into it. Now, the last thing we actually have to do is add our texture to the game. So if we go back to our desktop here, you can see I already have a PNG file named Ruby, but I will leave it a link in the description down below. It's a great video on how to create a texture yourself. I might make one on my own, but I didn't want to take up time in the video to do that. But essentially, inside of anything like MS Paint, I think you can use GIMP, Photoshop, any of those photo editing sites, or not sites, applications rather. You can create a 16 by 16. We can just make sure here with properties. There we go, properties, details. You can see it is 16 by 16 pixels. You want to make sure that's what it is. Otherwise, it may not work. And make sure you name it exactly what you named your item in your deferred registry, of course. So again, if this was like tanned leather, as we said before, there we go, rename. We put tanned underscore leather. So you want to include the underscores, but in my case, it's just Ruby. And we can open up our Minecraft modding folder here, go to tutorial mod, source, main, resources, assets, tutorial, or whatever your mod ID is, textures, and items. And you want to drop it inside of items. And if we close out of this and go back to IntelliJ, and we right click on our project here, and we click reload from disk, and then we go all the way down into assets, tutorial, textures, items. You can see we do have our ruby.png, and it's in there. So now finally, if we run the game, we should be able to see our item. And again, you can run the game by making sure you're on run client and clicking the green triangle here. Okay, so we're inside of the game, and as you can see, we do have the Ruby in our inventory, and we can drop it on the ground, and it's working just like a normal item, and it has a beautiful texture. Of course, if you right click, it doesn't do anything because it's a basic item, but we'll be making more advanced items later on. And again, if you go to your creative menu, you can see that it is at the bottom, of course, and it does have the correct name. That's very important, and it's also in miscellaneous as well. Now, one thing to note, if you can't find it in your creative inventory for whatever reason, you can always open up your command line by typing T and do /give @p, which stands for @player, and then your mod ID, which is tutorial, colon, and then the name of your item, so Ruby. And if you hit enter, you can see that it gave us 1 Ruby to the developer. So that's an easy way to get it from your creative inventory. So we've now successfully created our first item in the game, and if you ever want to make a new item, it's super easy, and this is for a basic item, of course. All you have to do is go to your registry handler class here, again, that's in your util folder, and just copy and paste this line here where we have our Ruby object. You can just right click, copy, paste below, and just rename the object. Instead of Ruby, I'll do tanned underscore leather. And rename the item name as well in here, tanned underscore leather. And everything else you can keep the same. All you have to do now is just open up models, item, and just right click, copy, where's copy? Copy the ruby.json that you made, and you can just paste it in item again, so you're duplicating it, and just rename it to your new item. So tanned underscore leather. Hit OK. And all you need to do is, again, change Ruby to tanned underscore leather, file, save all, and then finally, if you just drop your tanned underscore leather.png inside of items and you load up the game, you now have a new item. It's that easy because of Forge's new changes. So yeah, that's pretty much us done with the video. Thanks guys so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about blocks and more advanced items. So yeah, see you guys in the next episode.